Hey everybody, welcome back to the 1111 Update podcast. My name is Krista Kayser, and today's episode is my second solo one, and in all honesty, one that I have not especially been looking forward to. I think it's important to share this story. I think it's important to talk about how my intuition saved my life, but it's a very taxing subject emotionally, mentally, and physically on me. So I'm hoping that I get to kind of put this out, talk about it, and then honestly never really have to talk about it again unless I want to. And not that I don't want to. Like I said, I do think it's really important to share this. And so as some of you know, I was stalked in 2021, and this is how my intuition saved my life. When I'm going to rewind a little bit, there have been different times in my life where, you've made that decision and you think, oh my gosh, like that could have gone so differently had I not done this. And one of the probably biggest standouts for me was when I was a child. I always sat behind my dad. He was the driver. I was always behind the driver's seat in the back seat. My sister was always behind my mom in the passenger seat. So I forget why or where my sister was, why she wasn't there, or where she was. And I just one day decided we were going into town to do something that I would sit on the passenger's side in the back seat. And that day we got T-boned at a major intersection in Peterborough at Chemong and Tower Hill. And the whole side that I normally sat in, like the door was already like crunched right in there. So I could have been paralyzed. I could have lost my legs. Like who knows what would have happened. So that's like just one of those standouts in my life where I thought like whatever voice was speaking to me that day, for whatever reason, I kind of strayed from my routine. There was clearly a greater reason to it. And I'm going to talk about this incident that happened on October 13th, 2021. And should go without saying, but it certainly does not. There is a massive trigger warning here, people. So please be aware. There is, stalking, like suicidal ideation, all of it. So, just bear with me, guys. This is a lot. So one day, October 13th, 2021, I went down to the post office around, I'd say 10 to 11, and grabbed my new Arcanum LA green aventurine and black freshwater pearl necklace and switched it out for my black tourmaline and freshwater pearl necklace. And I was going to take Shrimp over to the Oval, which is like a little skating oval in the winter, and it's just like walking trails in Lakefield. So off we went, same thing we did every single day. Pulled up, got her out, left her. I left her on her leash always, because if you know Shrimp, that bitch is quick. She is excitable. She's adventurous. She will find her way to a smell. She must get that from me. I just let Shrimp go, and I was just kind of, fidgeting with my little fanny pack, doing whatever I was doing. And I was walking along, and there was nobody there. I noted that there was no cars there, which was like not super uncommon, but I always like to think, okay, if there's other cars there, then maybe I won't keep Shrimp off the leash. Like, I'm just a very conscientious person, and I try to, keep Shrimp at her best, keep myself at my best, make sure everybody's enjoying themselves. And so I pulled up, went into the woods, was walking along, and it was like one of those kind of dreary, like after it had rained October days. And as we were getting into the woods, I thought, I got a white dog. I've got a borrowed car. Like, I don't think this is a good idea. So as I turn around, I'm heading back to the parking lot kind of thing, but going the longer way around so that we could at least have a small walk. And Shrimp and I saw this guy, and she was on leash but not attached to me, so she kind of ran over to him, and he was just like this fucking unformidable. I said he was like the most average, like boring, uninteresting person I've probably ever seen. And he wouldn't speak or acknowledge. Like, it was so weird. I think it's so weird when people don't talk to you if you're the only two people, like, on one side of the street, or if you're the only two people in an entire field. Like, that's fucking weird to not say anything. So I clocked that, and I just, classic woman, apologized for shrimp running over, and, just tried to make him comfortable, even though I was fucking already, my little, spidey senses were up. And he kind of was like, oh, it's fine. I got 2 dogs at home. Like, I was like, oh yeah, like, don't worry. She's nice, whatever. And I just kind of kept on going. I was like, yeah, toodles. And so I remembered that there was this like little kind of one runoff, and it looked pretty dry. So Shrimp and I went, it was like a trail that like went over to somebody's house kind of thing, like the back of a farmer's field. And so it's like a one way in, one way out kind of a trail. So I was walking down that way. I had my phone on speaker, and I was like listening to Beyonce, just like moving, grooving, having a little walk-see. And I get to the end of this kind of trail, and I'm like, get this vision, literally a vision of this guy popping up behind me and like seeing me bust in a move or whatever. And I was like, oh, that's embarrassing. So I turn around, and he's not there. And I just think, okay, well, maybe I should turn back and just head out, period. Like, there's nowhere else to walk. All I'm going to do is walk more into mud. So I turn around, and I'm standing there for like 1 second, and then I see him. And it's like, I'm probably, I don't know, 3/4 of a kilometer in for the Americans. I don't know what that is. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know. I don't fucking know. Google it. So he's standing there, and I'm like, oh, maybe he's stoned. Like, I've been stoned in the woods before and acted weird. So you just never know what somebody's thinking. So I'm like, oh, maybe he's stoned, whatever. That's weird. So he just like all of a sudden crouches. By the way, this dude's like 6 foot something. And to everybody, I know I have massive dick energy, but I am 5 foot, possibly 1.5. Probably more like 5'1". So, he can take me in size, period, point blank, dot. And so I'm starting to get like, more weirded out. And then he like crouched in this tall grass. And like, he's still so tall, but the grass is still so tall. Like, honestly, the grass was like sometimes up to my shoulder in this little area. But again, there was trails, like it was clear cut. It wasn't like an issue. And until now. And so he crouches down, and I'm like thinking, what the fuck is this guy doing? Again, I'm still thinking he's stoned. Cause like, I don't know, guys, I did mushrooms one time. Well, more than one time, but I did mushrooms and went to a Tragically Hip concert in Bob Cajun. And I swear to you, I could not sit. I could not stand. I could not get comfortable. I could not have my sunglasses on. I could not have them off. Like, it was a whole journey. So, I mean, I just assume homeboy's fried. And so then he kind of gets up, and he like walks with these like fucking daddy long legs into the higher grass and keeps going like probably a couple 100 feet all the way back to this like sumac. And like I say, it's October, so it's fall. Everything's like fall colors, bright reds, deep oranges, browns, like, and this guy's wearing a bright red shirt and black and brown shorts. So he's fucking camouflage. He goes into the sumacs and hides there. And my heart is beating out of my fucking chest. Everything in me was like screaming, and it was saying like, this guy's trying to fucking sexually assault you. And guys, like, I know that's maybe like, I shouldn't even have to defend that thought after being like followed into the woods, you know what I mean? But even still, in this climate, I feel like I have to say, there was just something about it. Ooh. Sorry. something about it that just felt like nefarious. It felt more than just scaring somebody. And so I start screaming at him. And like, that's all I can think to do. I have a knife on me. Like, I have a tiny little knife that my best friend bought me when I moved to Toronto because her mom had a whole adventure in Mexico and ended up in jail. But nonetheless, I had it on me. But like, unless this guy was like 6 inches from me, there's nothing I could do. It's not legal to have pepper spray in Canada. And if you know anything about bear spray, if you spray that shit, you're going to the hospital. Like, it's not something that you just spray and like run away from. Like, it's a whole thing. So even after the fact, I still think that I have to justify by saying I did everything right and that I just felt that he had these intentions, even though, thank God, like, I'll skip to the good part. He did not physically touch me. He did not get anywhere near me. But I'll go back to where I'm thinking about all of the like tools and like resources that I have on me. Nobody in the world knows where I am. Like, I live alone at this point in time. I lived alone. Like, I didn't call and check in with anybody in the morning. Like, you don't, I just kind of rolled out of bed and was like, well, here we are, world, like, off we go. So I'm standing there thinking, like, what the fuck do I have? And I just hear, like, use your voice. God. So I start screaming at him, like, what the fuck are you doing? This is so fucking creepy. You're doing literally the worst possible thing you could be doing to a woman right now. Like, just screaming. And I can just like see him moving through the bushes, and like, I'm trying to walk past him. Like I said, it was one way in, one way out. And this guy's now to my right, like 200 feet in the bushes, and I can see him moving to like get ahead of me. Like I said, one way in, one way out. And I'm just literally shaking. Also, by this point, I had gotten shrimp back in my control in my hand because the last thing I wanted was her to fucking go anywhere near this goddamn creep. So I'm walking back, screaming at him, and I'm not a runner. I have giant boobs and a giant ass, and I have since I was like 10 years old. So I hate if I run, it's like from the police. It's for good, like, it's not something that I'm just like, oh, off I go, having a little fucking tootle, having a little jog. No, it's like, if I'm running for my life. I'm thinking of like the distance from where I am to where the car is. And not that I can't do it, but like, this motherfucker's got like 12 feet praying mantis legs. So like, what do? I can't outrun this guy. So I'm thinking again, like, just screaming. And I'm like, oh my God, my friend Colleen is in BC and she's 3 hours behind. So by this time it's like 8:30 in the morning there, 11:30 Ontario time. And I dial, phone goes to voicemail, and I'm like, fuck. So then I was going to call my aunt, and I like my hands couldn't even like unlock my phone. I was so scared. I was trembling so hard. And this guy just kept like closing in as I'm like trying to inch my way closer out of the trail to get to where the car is. He's like pretty much in lockstep, if not a little bit ahead of me in the bushes. And so Colleen, I'm like asking Siri to call Kathy, and Colleen calls me back, and I'm like, oh my God. So she's like, hey bitch. And I'm like, I'm being followed. Like, Colleen, I'm being followed. And she like, obviously the energy changes. Like, my voice is trembling. Like, it was truly, I can't even imagine, like, possibly one of the scariest calls that you could receive from a friend ever. Like, I feel awful that I even had to do that. But again, like, here I am apologizing for what I had to do to kind of get out of a terrible fucking situation. So she's like kind of talking, and I'm like, I'm calling the police. So by the way, I'm not telling this like verbatim. I did write about this on social media, and I didn't want to just read that off. So there is more detail, I'm sure, in the two posts that I wrote about this whole incident, but If you're like, hey, like, you're not being super detailed, that's because I've finally allowed myself to forget some of it. And I don't, as much as I love everybody and as much as I want to help everybody, I don't owe anybody to remember it in that kind of detail. I owe it to myself to actually start to heal from it and start to kind of forget some of those things. So let's clock it. What time is it? 15 minutes in, guys. 15 minutes in. So I'm like screaming at him that I'm calling the police. Colleen calls me back. And he's closing in. He's getting so much closer and he's just like about to make a fucking break for it. Like he's exposed himself several times and I've turned around and screamed at him like, I fucking see you. Like I can't even tell you the rage in my body just as I'm recounting this, let alone like remembering the fucking blood pulsing through my body that day. Like if that... I hope to God that man never fucking runs into me in the woods again because I fear for his safety. You know what I'm saying? If that rage ever comes back, donezo. But that's not a threat, by the way. This is all just hypothetical. So Colleen's on the phone and he's closing in and I'm like probably, I don't know, maybe 300 yards or 300 meters or whatever from my car. And I just make a run for it. I just fucking bolt. Colleen's on the phone with me, all of it. So I get to the car, I like triple lock the car, and I'm just shaking and screaming and crying. Like I don't even think I cried like that when my dad died. Do you know what I mean? Like, I had a guttural, deep fucking cry, but this was like an animalistic cry that I had. And so this woman fucking pulls up. And she's like an older woman, and she gets out of her car, and I'm like, Colleen, hold on. I've got to call you back. I have to tell this woman. And she's like, I don't know, like I said, she's an older lady, so maybe like 70s, 80s, no fucking clue. Skincare is a hell of a thing, and so is Botox. So I'm like, don't go in there. Like I just got stalked. I'm like crying. Like I look like shit. I look like I've just been like through war, you know? And she's like, oh, what happened? And I'm like telling her, and she goes, was he black? And I said, he was a white male. And also, what, like, I lost my entire fucking mind on her. She laughed at me at first and then made a racist comment, and I just lost. I was like, what the fuck is the matter with you? Like, just went in on her. And she just walked off onto this trail the exact way that I had come out and was laughing heading in, being like, oh, I'm fine. I was like, you fucking cunt. Sorry to anybody who hates that word, but I need it in my life. And I was raging. Like, it snapped me out of, like, being so traumatized and scared for my life into, like, again, anger. So anger is, like, clearly a theme around this. So I finally am, like, able to get in the car. So I'm trying to call Colleen back. It goes to voicemail again. I know she'll call me back. Like, she's still got to take her kid to school. You know what I'm saying? Life's got to happen. And so she calls me back. I'm at home. I'm like walking in my door. I'm like triple locking everything. And she's like, I called the police. They want you to call them, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, fuck. So, because like, no offense to anybody, I know how things go in the justice system. I know how things are for women. I know how it is to prove stuff, and I never, ever, ever wish what happens to a victim through the justice system and through the whole process on anybody. I would never, actually maybe on the guy who was a fucking loser who did this. That's about it, though. Nobody deserves to go through the shit that we end up going through, jumping through hoops to help them get convictions. So That was my little digression. I'm sorry. So that's what my thought was never to call the police. It never even came to my mind, but she had, so I assumed there was already like a thing open, you know what I mean? Like that they were waiting. So I have to call this like OPP number, and I call it, and the fucking lady is such a bitch on the phone. I'm like shaking, traumatized, calling back to say like, yeah, I'm the one who was just stalked at the Lakefield Oval, blah, blah, blah. And she was such a bitch about it, where I was like actually kind of being rude back to her. And again, fucking when people are rude, it just makes me mad, I guess. So so that's it. Nobody comes to me. Nobody, like, that's it for the day. I'm left in my apartment shaking, crying. I call my aunt. She's on the golf course. I tell her what happened. I'm like, again, screaming, crying. Like, it's my worst nightmare. Like, I know no, it's not dramatic. That is my worst nightmare. So I had just survived my worst nightmare, and I was dealing with the reality of it. And Kathy came and helped me walk shrimp that night, and like I couldn't leave the house without being in tears. I remember walking around the block, and there was like a noise, like a squirrel or something had like jumped in the bush, and like my whole heart just like flew out of my chest. Like I had like a breakdown, and it was that way for almost 2 weeks. Almost every time I left my house to walk shrimp. I lived in a second floor apartment. I had no green space. I had nothing for her to pee on. And the next day I get a phone call from actually my best friend's sister, who is a OPP detective constable. And she calls, no, that's not true. I'm sorry. I get a voicemail at 8 a.m. from the OPP. It was her partner. And he was saying, hi, I'm so-and-so. I want to follow up and actually get a report from you for what happened yesterday. And so I call them back. I get patched through to my best friend's sister. And she's like, I'm so sorry that happened. She's like, I saw your description. I saw everything. And then I saw who it was. And we want to take a report. And so I'm like, okay. She's like, I can't do it. Obviously, it's a conflict of interest. She's like, but my partner will do it. At this time, can you come to us? And I'm like, no. And she's like, okay, we'll come to you. Or they'll come to you. So I'm getting ready for them to come to me. And I'm like a fucking stoner, intuitive, hairdresser, like gypsy soul in a way, who has like an apartment that reflects that. And so I'm thinking like, oh, I don't know. Like, again, I'm not super stoked on them coming, but like, it is what it is. So I get a call right before the guy's supposed to come, and he says he can't make it, but these other detectives are coming. And I'm like, whatever. So they show up, and little did I know that at the exact time, like the reason why the guy couldn't come and take my statement was because he was interrogating the guy, because my best friend's sister went out to the fields to the scene of the crime, essentially, and she was looking for evidence for his shirt. They'd found CCTV of him. Actually, I'll explain that after. But she was there looking for evidence. And guess who fucking popped up behind her? The same fucking idiot. So she arrests him. He's in the OPP or whatever, getting interrogated or whatever happens. And I have 2 other detectives coming to me to take my statement. So at this point, I've already gone and taken a Google Maps like satellite image of the trails, and I've labeled everything, and I've already written down my account of everything because again, I was raised by television. I know how these things go. I know you have to make a statement. I know you have to show them stuff. Like, I know that with police, with anything in the justice system, it's a facts based system. So I'm trying to get myself prepared, get the facts together. And so they show up, invite them in. It's this lady and this guy. The lady's interviewing me, and the guy is like recording or like monitoring everything that the lady says. It was weird. So she's asking me questions. I tell them everything that's happened. They're like, "Why didn't you run?" And I was like, "Are you fucking like?" It was just like stupid shit that they, and it didn't like piss me off in the moment, but it pisses me off now. Like, I'm telling you everything. Like, give me a hot second before you try to fucking tear it all apart, okay? So there was like, and I kept reiterating the exact same things in the different words that they wanted me to. So I say, not for nothing, like, guys, I'm an intuitive. I know how you guys feel about that. Like, but in my heart of hearts, in my gut of guts, I feel this guy's 18 to 20 years old. I know he's 6 foot something. He's like between, I don't know, around 180 pounds. I said it felt to me like he broke out of his parents' basement. I know he had to show up on a bike. There's no other way he could have would have gone unseen. It felt like he knew those trails so well and was able to traverse them because he'd been there so many times before. I said it felt like he had a small window of opportunity and like he broke out of his parents' basement to come down and do this. And they were like, okay, like kind of straight faced. And I guess the moment they left, they both shit their pants because I described the exact guy, described the exact situation. He lived within 2 kilometers of the trails. Arrived on bike, and like I said, the CCTV that the OPP went and seized showed him at the exact times that I said coming down on his bike. He came down in the exact clothing that I had described, that red shirt, the black pants, and how like unremarkable he was. How he had like those like really like crappy like nerdy like Oakley glasses, you know what I mean? Like those like sports style sunglasses. And I'm like just going in because I can't stand that motherfucker. If anybody else has them, like blessings to you, but this is my petty little soul getting my like my words out the way that I can, all right? So so they had him, and they showed on CCTV that he had ripped his shirt off because of course I'm going to say he's in a red shirt, and then the police are, because he thought I was on the phone with the cops, let's not forget. And so he took off his shirt, biked back home, and guess who was on probation for attempting to sexually I don't know if it was attempting because he was a minor at the time, but I have at least 2 women who are in my DMs who I know who he has also attacked and changed the course of their lives. So shout out to you angels. I love you. I hate that we have this in common. And I'm so grateful we have each other to support each other through this. So shout out. So anyways, they put him in jail. I was told that I can't talk about this with anybody because they're going to need me to, for the court trial, for the process of everything, to possibly do a police lineup. They asked me, do I think that I could identify that guy? And I said 100%. And so I got the call, I think just shy of 2 weeks later. And I'm telling you, like, when you're told that you have to remember, like, can you do a police lineup? And you're like, yeah, for sure. And then you're like, fuck, I can't talk to anybody about this. Now I have to actually, like, keep this guy's image in my brain. And, like, I have, or I used to have, an absolutely insane memory. Like, detail, detail, detail. And so, like, this was, like, imprinted. I was having nightmares about it. And there was this guy who worked at the local grocery store, not the IGA, fuck the IGA, the other one, the market, and he's an absolute angel, but he looked so much like this guy that, like, when I would see him, my whole body would just start to, like, have that panic. So I end up getting the call that, like, can I come and do this police lineup? I have to go there. It's going to be recorded. It can't be any of the detectives that I've had anything to do with. It's going to be a different person, yada, yada, yada. So I'm driving in and I'm thinking, like, I'm shaking. I mean, we all probably talk a big game, but, like, when push comes to shove, can I identify this person? So I'm, like, talking to my guides and angels. This has been a huge thing. Whenever I feel unwell, like, whenever I feel scared, especially when I was having to stay in my home, like, my home was the only place that I felt safe, to be perfectly honest. But as soon as I left it on my walks, like, because my aunt couldn't come and walk with me 3 times a day, 7 days a week, like, it just wasn't feasible. So I eventually had to start to go out on my own, and, like, I would just repeat over and over again, I am safe, I am secure, I trust my intuition, I am safe, I am secure, I trust my intuition. Like, it would just be over and over, like a fucking mantra. And so as I'm driving to the OPP headquarters or whatever to identify this, like, photo lineup, which I wasn't sure if it was photo or in person, like, it wasn't explained to me. So I'm, like, talking to my guides and angels. Thank you, guides and angels, for helping me, like, positively identify this person. Thank you for showing me an angel number to confirm that I'm going to be able to positively identify him. And thank you for giving my body the most guttural reaction to identify this person. And so I, like, am driving along, and I, like, kind of, when there's, like, somebody ahead of you on the highway, and like, there's a red light or whatever somewhere above, and you just kind of, like, close the gap. So I closed, like, maybe a half a kilometer gap with this car, and the license plate had 111 on it. I'm sure to this day I still have a photo of it. And so I'm like, okay, that kind of calmed me down a little. But I'm still shaking. Like, I'm still, like, I get the shits when I'm nervous. Blessings to you who don't. But, like, my God, my stomach just does, like, backflips. Like, it is no good. My stomach can't handle it. Nor can my body. Like, it just wants to expel this, like, anxious nervousness, this doubt, this fear, all of it. So I'm, like, worried that I don't have to poop when I get to the OPP. And I arrive and I go into this interrogation room, which I'm like, fuck, like, this, it's not how I want to feel. You know what I mean? Like, as a, like, and I hate using the word victim, but there is no other word necessarily, like, that I can think of in this moment to describe being on the receiving end of an offense. So, like, as a quote unquote victim, like, going into an interrogation room is, like, not warm and cozy and, like, how you want to feel supported, going into this, but whatever. So it, like, again, makes me more uncomfortable. And this is, like, 2021 mask season. I have a mask on. The officer has a mask on, and she's telling me, okay, we've got like, we're recording you. We've got mics in here. I'm going to give you 12, sorry, they may have described this before I came, but I just don't remember. We're going to give you 12 envelopes, and in each envelope is a photo of the, like, similar or of the description that you gave us. And so one of these 12s is the person who we've arrested. So you have to write yes or no, I do not know this person. And it, like, you may know them outside of an offense, but, like, just tell us. And then I have to, like, you can't compare them. You have to go one at a time, and you have to write, like, a definitive yes on the back or definitive no, sign and date each photo. So I'm like, I'm a process girl. I try to do everything so, to the T sometimes that, like, I can get caught up in semantics and process. So that at least was something for me to focus on while I was doing this. And so she starts handing me one of 12 envelopes at random. I open them. She turns her head. Like, so there's supposed to be no influence, right? That's the idea. So I open these 12, like this one, and I'm like, nope, 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 nope. And I hold, and when it was yes, I was to hold the photo up to the camera. And so I'm like starting to like worry, just throughout this whole thing, I trusted myself all the way until this. And I don't know why I stopped. You know what I mean? Like why I guess because my emotions were so high, I was feeling so much, and like it just, I couldn't hear or feel my intuition, or I didn't think that I could in the same way. And so I start to get a little nervous that like maybe what if I've already gone through this? Like what the fuck? So then I come to number 5 and I open it, and all of the air gets like sucked out of my body. Like, so I mentioned I had a mask on, and it like, when you like, and you have a mask or like a piece of fabric near you to like shove into your mouth. So like that happened. I started shaking, tears started coming. Like I asked for a guttural response, and my body was like, bitch, I'll show you 5 guttural responses all at the same time. And I'm like shaking, like I can't even like hold the picture. And I'm like, this is him. Yeah, this is him. And she's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, this is him. So I have to like hold it up to the camera and then write yes, date, sign, and then go through the rest, write no, date, sign, and then I can leave. So I'm like walking out, and my best friend's sister comes running out after me, and I haven't seen her at all in this process. I've spoken to her once, but I haven't seen her. And so she comes up behind me and she's like, you got him, you got him. And I'll never forget. I will never forget. I just lost it. I was done. I'd been holding on for 3 weeks or 2 weeks or however long it had been. And I couldn't contain it. I sobbed into her sweater, like those deep guttural sobs. And I just was like, okay, well, like at least this part is over. And I still couldn't talk about this with anybody. And I got hooked up with victim services, and the OPP victim services here is absolute trash. I'm sure there are some, I'm not even sure that there are some good people. There is a potential that there are some good people within that organization, but I had an absolute trash experience and ended up having, like, the Crown and I were dealing with it. The Crown attorney and I ended up after, but nonetheless. So I'm basically on a gag order. I can't talk about this to anybody. I get hooked up with victim services, and they hook me up with a trauma therapist. So trauma therapist ends up being the neighbor around the corner from my grandparents' house, knew my aunt, knew my dad, my grandparents. Like, I'm like, fuck, welcome to my tiny small town. So I'm like, well, at least she understands the context of my family. Like, I can't really be fully honest about everything, or fully forthcoming about everything, but at least, there's some context there. So anyways, we did that. That was a whole other fucking journey. But so homeboy's still in jail, and that was October. December, I don't know, December something, I hear from the Crown attorney, and she says this is the trial date or whatever. If he pleads guilty, then you don't need to do anything but a victim impact statement. If he pleads not guilty, then you may have to come to court, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just thinking, like, are you fucking serious? Like, yes, I get that this is a thing that happens, but like this happened to me in October and it's December and I still don't have any answers, right? I still don't know what's going to happen. I'm still like my whole life is on pause. Like I couldn't work. There was so much, I couldn't even have a fucking conversation. Like I just break down into tears. So like my whole life was being like tied up by this. And at this point, like I started 2021 being self-employed. Like I took the giantest leap on myself at the end of 2020 and was like, fuck this. I don't want to work. I was working for somebody else, and I was like, I don't want to work for this bitch anymore. Let me get the fuck out of here and go all in on my stuff. And if it is what it is, if it doesn't work out, I'll get a job somewhere else. So up until this point, I'd been like self-sustaining. I'd been doing so well for myself that I thought, I was able to sustain myself being self-employed. And like, that was such a massive accomplishment. And after this, it was like, oh my God, like I was hemorrhaging money. It was not good. So he ended up pleading guilty, and I ended up having to do a victim impact statement. But what's really like stands out to me now is I remember, I didn't say this when I was talking about when the detectives came to take my statement, but when I was with them, I was telling them, like, I've lived in Jasper National Park. I have been less than like 100 feet from a grizzly bear, and I've never been so scared for my entire life. I've never feared for my safety like I had with that guy in Lakefield. And so I find it very kind of interesting that man versus bear kind of conversation came up for women. Like, I'm on record saying that I would much rather run into a grizzly bear than a guy in the fucking woods. And this was 3 years ago. So, pardon me. Sorry, guys. I've been crying. I'm like a little snotty. It's a whole journey. This is why I was not looking forward to doing this kind of episode, but I'm grateful to get it out. Like, it's cathartic, Your story is your story. And when I was under a gag order, like, I'm a Reiki practitioner. I work in chakras. Like, my throat chakra, my neck was so tight. My throat chakra was so closed. It was so unbalanced. Like, it was really hard. And so I'm a person who insulates anyways when I go through stuff. Like, I'm a quality time person. And what's the first thing that somebody who loves quality time does is they isolate, they insulate, they get away from everybody. And so putting the gag order on top of that, like, it was fucking wild, just wild. But I do want to read to you guys my victim impact statement that I wrote and sent. Anyways, homeboy ended up pleading guilty. He got out for time served, and he breached his conditions, which I have a no contact order. And also, keep in mind, I was an anonymous person. I was a random fucking target before all this. And since he had gone to court, now he knows my name. Now, like, I'm no longer an anonymous private citizen. He knows who I am. And so that was one of the things that I was pushing to get him banned from Lakefield, because he's a fucking creep. And I lived in a very central area, you couldn't go to the liquor store, the grocery store, you couldn't go to the hardware store, you couldn't go anywhere without being within 100 feet of me, or 500 feet, or whatever the thing was. So this is my victim impact statement, which basically summarizes everything that we've just gone over, but I do want to share it with you. October 13th, 2021 was one of the worst days of my life. I left my home to start a typical day, and 2 months and 1 day later, my life is still anything but typical. Emotionally, the offense pushed me into a deep depression. As somebody who regularly took solace in nature, I have only been on a trail once, accompanied by a loved one, since. Nature and outdoor enjoyment have been a staple in my mental health, physical health, and emotional health. 3 times a day, I would walk my dog, with 2 of those walks being on local trails. Now I cross the street to avoid walking past a bush or tree for fear of a repeat experience, and I walk in populated, well-lit, and high-traffic areas. In addition to the deep depression incurred, my anxiety levels have increased severely. To this day, if someone innocently catches me off guard, it reduces me to tears and trembles. Side note, to this day, it still happens. I live at my aunt's house, and if I'm just like sitting in my bedroom, like watching TV, reading a book, she has to like announce herself, or she tries to announce herself so that I don't jump out of my skin because that's exactly what I do. So anyways, sorry about that. I have suffered from nightmares and recurring dreams about the incident. Friends and family have noticed a marked difference in me as haven't felt safe outside of my home. This has greatly inhibited my ability to socialize, date, trust, or truly be present and enjoy time with loved ones. My once very chill and calm dog has become anxious and protective since the offense. I was unable to work for 3.5 weeks post-offense, and as a self-employed person, this has severely affected my finances and stress levels. I was planning a trip in the new year, which I no longer feel safe to take, nor is it in reach financially. This was my dream. Like, I was dying to go to California. I am still trying to recoup the losses from missed work. This offense cost me thousands of dollars and clients that I was unable to accommodate. I am now trying to relocate due to safety concerns, which is also incredibly costly in this economic climate. I have limited resources available from victim services for trauma therapy that will soon run out. I am unable to keep up with the cost once this is done. My sense of security has been forever violated. What was once an exercise in physical and mental health turned into every woman's nightmare. Despite me doing everything right in a natural and communal space where I was once free to clear my thoughts, walk my dog, and ground my soul and body, I am paralyzed by fear, anxiety, and trauma. I wholeheartedly fear the offender's return to our small village, as the offender showed zero regard for the safety of myself during the offense and the community as a whole in breaching their conditions. Another safety concern is that I was also once an anonymous target, and now the offender has my name. In summary, this offense and the offender has cost me thousands of dollars, freedom of enjoyment in nature, including my personal sense of safety and security. The offender will go back to a normal life once they've served their time, and I will be imprisoned in fear for my safety. And I mean, this is like 2.5 years later, and this guy got caught again. So he was released. I saw him less than, I think, 24 hours after he'd been released. He was allowed to walk on local trails with his parents, which was the dumbest fucking thing because he was under their care when he broke out. They signed his assurance to say that they would make sure that he was complying. And so, yeah, they just released him back into the parents' care, and they were walking their dog. So I was walking around the corner, and again, anger. That old friend anger comes through. So I was walking around the corner coming from a grocery store or somewhere, and I see, again, my gut just kicks up. I see this guy, I see these 2 dogs, because remember he mentioned he had 2 dogs, and I see this man, we'll call him, beside him, and I just scream the guy's first name, and he turns around, and I said, what did I say? Stay the fuck away from here. Do you want to go back to jail, you piece of shit? Like, I just started screaming at him. So then, I think not even a week later, he walked across my front lawn. Not that I had the front lawn. Remember, I was on the 2nd floor, but I looked down and I saw him and his mom walking across with 2 fucking dogs. And then the next time, and I talked to the OPP, they said there's nothing we can do. He's with his parents. He's not breaching his conditions. Standing on my front fucking lawn, less than 50 feet away from my window, from me in my home. Nothing they could do. Bull fucking shit, by the way. So one day I go outside to walk shrimp, slowly. I don't walk on trails alone. I don't even walk. I have woods behind me. He lives within 5 kilometers of where I live, and I will not go anywhere. There's signs still to this day all around neighborhoods very close to me that say, do not walk this area alone, because he fucking just picks new spots to try and sexually assault new women. So one day I come out of my house, he's walking across the lawn with his mom, and I just fucking scream at her. I'm like, what the fuck is the matter with you? You're just fucking parading a predator around this area? What the fuck is wrong with you? Predator! And I just started screaming predator. I was like, fuck you! Again, anger. I'm never proud. Maybe once or twice I've been proud of the shit that I've said in anger, but like, it's not like I'm proud. It's just like, this shit is like funneling out of me. Like, I cannot stop it. And I ended up moving back out west. I just did not feel safe at all. There was no real sense of normalcy. Like, I could not feel normal. And when I think just before I went out west, he got caught on another local trail with a bow and arrow, because this time he was gonna make sure that his victim could not get away. And so he went back into jail, and then I moved back to Ontario in April of last year, and I think he got released in May of last year. So I'm just waiting to hear again that this fucking loser goes away. And the Peterborough Police Victim Services reached out to me, who I've never heard from before, ever, to try to get me to help them. And actually twice I've heard from his probation officer, which I've never heard from before, and the Peterborough Victim Services, because they were trying to get him banned from Lakefield. And I said, get fucked, guys. Like, get fucked. I don't even... You contact me after 2 years to try to help you? Get fucked. And same with the probation officer. I said, stop re-traumatizing me. Stop re-traumatizing your victims and just reaching out of the blue because I'm a fucking checklist on your little list of shit to do. I do not care to participate in this. So I still have some anger, as you can tell, around this whole situation, but it has been very cathartic to like know that I was in truly my worst nightmare and my intuition saved me. I shudder to think, if I didn't receive that message, if I didn't see him popping up behind me, what would have happened? Because I know 2 other people that have experience. So I before this, I was involved with Kawartha Sexual Assault Center. And if you're listening to this, if you feel moved, if you are a victim of gender-based violence, sexual assault, please donate to Kawartha Sexual Assault Center or your local sexual assault center, because these places are severely underfunded and the need is overwhelming. I didn't go through them because, I was their biggest fundraiser. I had raised $5,000 for them at this point, and I had spoken at their Take Back the Night. Like, I just, I felt guilty. So I didn't use the resource, but now, I do everything I can to help funnel money their way, and I'm so grateful for the people and places that are there to do this. I'm just going to pause for one moment shortly, because I'm going to go get the speech that I wrote for Take Back the Night 2023, which is 2 years after this happened. And I think it's like a beautiful way to complete this very heavy episode. So just give me one quick momento. Thank you for bearing with that brief pause. So this is the speech that I wrote for Take Back the Night, and I hope this is a beautiful way to kind of wrap up, like I said, this kind of heavy episode. And I promise, hopefully, actually I can't promise, but hopefully I won't be crying on all the solo episodes. So we're just going to go with the first 2 on that one. All right. So I started with, good evening, you beautiful pearls. Thank you for your community and love tonight. I am honored to be here as a presenter and empowered to be here as a survivor. I know all too well what most of you are going through. I am grateful I am not alone. I am grateful for people in places like Kawartha Sexual Assault Center who so lovingly support our community. Now you may wonder why I referred to you as pearls. Recently I learned that pearls are formed in oysters as a response. The beautiful shiny pearls that we covet and value so dearly were created out of protection. In the words of Alana Fairchild. Created in the depths of the ocean, hidden away in a clamshell away from prying eyes, This pearl symbolizes a beautiful blessing of unexpected grace. It began when an irritant caused the formation of a luminescent coating. The healing response to the initial intrusion resulted in an organic creation of inestimable beauty, value, and uniqueness, so this pearl can be a sacred catalyst. To arise spiritually, manifesting one's own priceless soul pearl, we are required to respond to to an initially unwanted situation in such a way that our soul light and power is increased as a result. This soul alchemy evokes the inner pearl of radiant being. Such spiritual wisdom cannot be bought or sold, controlled, nor exploited. The pearl in me sees the luminescent and illuminating pearls in all of you. May you wield and wear your pearls with pride, empowerment, and strength. So like I said, at the beginning of this, when I spoke about the trigger warning, I spoke about stalking, sexual assault, and all of this. And I have been sexually assaulted, multiple times. So I internalized. I didn't talk about it for many, 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 many years. And it wasn't until actually Me Too that I messaged a friend whose house one of, my sexual assaults had taken place at, and told her what happened. And, this is maybe 18 years later, maybe 17. No, that wouldn't have been that long, but maybe 10 to 15 years after the fact. Anyways, I finally told somebody for the first time because I blamed myself. And when all of this happened, even though, thank God, I wasn't sexually assaulted in this instance, but the trauma, I didn't want to live. I had a lot of depression history previously. Sidebar, I thought I was trying to lighten this shit up before I let you guys go. Jesus Christ, I don't know how to fucking run a podcast, guys. But, I'd struggled a long time with depression. And there was just something inside of me that awoke one day and said, don't let this guy take one more fucking thing from you. And so leaning into my spirituality, leaning into my healing, talking about this, I created a post on social media and I wrote about it on the Vibe Curator Instagram, and I wrote from my soul about my experience, what happened, because I could not be quiet about it anymore. I'd been quiet for so long about so much. And I guess this is the Gemini new moon fucking theme is communication. It's getting it out, it's sharing, it's expressing, it's allowing yourself to tell your story in ways that you want to. So I thank you if you made it this long. I don't blame you if you didn't. And I truly, truly appreciate all of your support with this podcast. Like I said, this is hopefully the last time I'll be talking about this. So I'm grateful to be able to have a place where it lives, and I can send a reference if anybody asks me about it. But I'm grateful for this outlet. I'm grateful for you, my wonderful audience, my friends, my angels. And thank you for subscribing. Thank you for downloading. Thank you for your 5-star reviews. I'm so grateful for all of the messages that we receive, the royal we, me and shrimp, that I receive about this. And I'm just so grateful to have this. So thank you so much. I am Krista Kayser, the Vibe Curator, and you can find me at the.vibe.curator on Instagram and thevibecurator.ca. Have a great day, everybody, and I'll talk to you on the next full moon.